Good evening. Is our president in his seat? Mr. President, City Town Clerk, Board of Aldermen, City Administration, and public, it's great to be here with you tonight to talk about New Haven, about where we are and where we're going. But before turning to public schools and public safety and our favorite, the balance sheet, I think it's right to start out with the people who live here, who work here, who go to school here, the people who make up New Haven, because they can truly, truly be quite extraordinary and inspiring. I was in the 6th Ward. I won't forget it. It was a blast of wind like I never felt before. I was at the end of Howard Avenue at South Water Street. It was dead noon on August 28th, and it was Irene. It was gusts of 60 miles an hour. We had a 6-foot storm surge. During that storm, 1,200 trees came down in the city. 170 streets were blocked in New Haven. A third of our households, 19,000 households in all, were left without power. And we were ready. The days before, we moved 500 cubic yards of sand in front of some of our waterfront homes. We evacuated Morris Cove. That night, the fire department knocked on every door in Morris Cove. After the storm, we delivered thousands of meals and bottles of water. We kept people on their meds. And those that needed power to keep their life support going at home got it. And with our CERT volunteers, we operated and sheltered hundreds of people. Most of the streets were clear within 3 days. Not all of them, but most of them. And most trees were removed and the power restored in an hour. It was amazingly well planned for, and just an extraordinary effort by a huge number of city staff, residents, and volunteers. And after spending the better part of the winter in the EOC, it was no fun to be there in August, but they did a great job. And I just like the folks who were there, and I want to shout out these agencies to raise their hands. I want to acknowledge them. From the health department, from elderly, from livable cities, from building, mayor's office, DPW, hello DPW, parks, community response, fire, police, public works, emergency communications, transportation. All you guys, come up here for a minute. I want you to see them. Come on up. You can do it. Come on up. See, parks and public works, they're always first. You guys did a great job. Look at these guys. Terrific. And I want them to come up. Because we talk about city employees a lot. And I know they see me a lot at negotiations times, and it isn't always fun and games. But you guys did an extraordinary job. You worked hour after hour, day after day. And I'll match our response on Irene to any other city or town in the state of Connecticut. Good job. Go back. You did a great job. Now, I just want to give you a second example, and it was 3 weeks ago. I was coming home. I got to the fire late. There was a fire in a 3-story structure over on State Street, corner Clark, if I remember correctly. Smoke throughout the building. Chief, I think we had 50 firefighters respond to that fire. Squad 1 pulled out 4 children and 1 adult from the 2nd floor. It was a great save. Didn't spread to the buildings right around it. But that wasn't the end of the story. What I was just so impressed with, and I saw it afterward, is that the neighborhood, not the city, not the Red Cross, it was the neighborhood, raised cash donations and got VA medical care for the residents. The neighborhood established a clothing and household goods donation and distribution center in their own neighborhood. They've set up a furniture collection center to help the families. I don't have neighbors like this, I think. These folks did it all. They even raised funds for the pets that were hurt in the fire and have given them a home. And I wanted to acknowledge them and do this. Squad 1 is here. Chief, we've got them here. Squad 1, come on up too. And I want to acknowledge Lisa Seidlard, Don Harvey, Natalie Bonifay, Chris Candido. You know, East Rock is so shy. And Chris has got Spooky, who is your house sitting for one of the families that lost their home. And you guys did a great job. I have rarely seen a neighborhood do such a broad array of support. You guys did a great job. Give them a hand, really. Good job. I only got one more. Thank you, guys. Now, last year, could you take the dog? Did they get permission for the dog? Finally. Well, last year wasn't such a good year for the national economy. It was a great year for economic development in the city. I'll talk about that briefly in a minute. But there was an example that showed how you can take something and make it even bigger. In 2011, you'll remember, we opened 2 supermarkets in New Haven. One is a result of an extraordinary effort by Dwight Development that organized the neighborhood with the Law Clinic and Yale Properties. They opened in April, and you'll also recall as part of 360 State Street, the Elm City Market opened in November. 2 supermarkets 1 year, good enough, and that's swell. But the better part and the better lesson for us was both markets made a decision. Not only did they want residents as customers, they wanted residents as employees. At Stop and Shop, 120 of the 150 employees are New Haven residents. At Elm City Market, 63 of 95, not only customers, but employees. Think about it if all employers in our city acted that way, to say not only do we want you as a customer, we want you as an employer. 2 supermarkets, great access to high-quality food. I want to acknowledge Elm City Market and Stop and Shop. And Ann, Deb, Check, and Kate, where are you? We're over here. Great job, guys. Now, Ann's the manager over there. Ann, what kind of cookies does the mayor like? Right, and do we have them in stock? Thank you, Ann. You can leave. They did a great job. They did a great job. So, after these 3 stories and all these folks that work for each other, you get a sense of something of the spirit and the fact that we recognize our responsibility not only to ourselves, but to one another. So now let's talk about what we need to do in 2012. And I want to talk about 4 things, 4 big jobs. I know there are lots of other things we need to do. I want to touch on 4 big things that we need to do. First, in long term, near term, our most pressing challenge and opportunity is public school change for all our kids. Our goals are clear in public school change: to turn each school into a high-functioning organization, to close the achievement gap to the state average, to cut the dropout rate in half, and to see that our high school graduates are academically prepared to succeed and have the resources to succeed in college. Well, why is that so important? Why is that academic achievement of our kids job number 1? You know this because a good education and post-high school degree or credential is essential, is necessary, is non-negotiable for a decent income, to take care of yourself and your family, and to reduce violence. And because of one other thing, Winchester's is gone and is not coming back. New Haven, in turn, has been one of the few consistent job creators in the state during the recession, but the kinds of jobs we're creating today are very different than what we created in the past. And so really the big question is for our community is, are our kids going to have the skills to hold the jobs of today? Not the jobs of yesterday, but the jobs of today. Know something. Right now, right at this moment, and half a world away, in India and China, right now, those kids are getting up and they are going to school. And they are getting the knowledge and the skills to make the best life that they can for themselves and their families. And they won't hesitate. They won't hesitate for a minute to do it at our kids' expense. And we have no reason to fear this competition as long as we prepare for it. In New Haven, preparing for that competition means staying faithful to the three big initiatives of school change that the Board of Education and Dr. Mayo have set out for us. Portfolio schools. Not every foot is the same size. We push responsibility and resources down to the school. We measure school performance. We create accountability as a result. We grow successful schools, and those that fail, we reconstitute. We uncompromisingly operate the schools for the kids, not for the adults. Second, talent. And nothing's more important in this effort than our students' teachers. They are the most important person in that building for them. Right now, our teachers and our principals are in the second year of a nationally acknowledged and groundbreaking initiative around evaluation. TEVAL, teacher evaluation, removes ineffective teachers from the classroom, and much more importantly than who we remove, is it makes good teachers even better and acknowledges extraordinary teachers. Portfolio, talent, and the third thing is promise. Do you know the group of Americans least affected by this recession, least likely to have lost their jobs? College graduates. College graduates, least likely. And there's a sharp and growing gap in America, and you know this. It's called the income gap. Now, this wage gap is increasingly a gap between those who are educated and those who are not. And therefore, it's a gap between those who have hope and promise and opportunity in their lives and those who will not. And whether it is a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree in association with a trade or career credential, it is a must for our kids. Promise delivers 100% tuition scholarship for our kids. And New Haven School Change has had great results. Over the last 2 years, the district has reorganized and has restaffed 5 of the lowest performing schools, including partnering with outside providers in 2 cases. You know, there's an old saying, black cat, white cat, what difference does it make as long as it catches mice? The district has built, there's an analogy there, if you need me to explain it later, I'll get it for you all. The district has built and delivered on a national model of administrator and teacher evaluation development, giving the vast majority of our teachers stronger coaching and feedback, and resulting in separation of a small number but significant number of administrators and teachers who were not delivering for students. New Haven Promise last year awarded 115 scholarships to students attending 16 colleges in its first year. This year, more than 2,300 students have signed Promise pledges for the next year. The college going, it is worth 2,300 kids. A college-going curriculum has been implemented in every pre-K-8 in the district, and people agree. Surveys completed by parents, teachers, and students tell us the climate is improving in 37 of our 39 schools, including higher academic expectations and more communications, collaboration, and engagement. Last year, we saw strong gains on the CMTs and the CAP tests, meeting our first-year goals and taking a solid step in being where we need to be to close the achievement gap. And the data released by the district last month on graduation stats shows the graduation rate went up 1.8% in the last year, and that many more of our underclassmen in the high school are on track. So what's next? First, we always want sometimes something new. We need to keep doing what we're doing in school change. This is not quick, easy, or cheap. It's like most things in our lives that are worthwhile. It involves persistence, effort, and showing up and showing up and showing up. We can do some things more. I've asked Dr. Mayo to create working with teachers, classroom teachers, an effort to take their best practices and work on them. We need a robust leadership pipeline. We need the next generation of building leaders, and we need them now. It's time to focus on career and tech ed in New Haven. Career and tech ed that connects our kids' interests and their talents to the kinds of jobs that are growing in New Haven. In 2012, working with Gateway Community College, that is what we'll do. Parent involvement. It is indisputable that when parents are involved in their kids' education, students do better all the way to school. I've asked Dr. Mayo to propose a parent university to begin to create mechanisms and supports and references for our parents to be able to provide the support to their kids. And finally, I would ask all of you here tonight on the board, to visit every elementary school in your district and to visit several of the high schools. Get to know these people by name who are creating the future of our city, our classroom teachers and our principals. They are truly extraordinary people. And I'll tell you, I just got back from a meeting in Seattle at the Gates Foundation. Gates Foundation is a major funder of school reform in the nation. I was one of about 20 mayors invited. They are mayors of LA, Philadelphia, Las Vegas, Denver, Nashville, Memphis. And with due respect to all of them, many of whom are doing great things, no one is doing as comprehensively and completely what we are doing and what Dr. Mayo and the school board is doing. It would be the great failure of our moment and of our time if we didn't follow through on school reform. And I wanted, in closing on this, to give you a face to this, because these are the real champions of our kids. A group of teachers who've been judged to be the top performers. And study after study has shown that a great teacher increases the earning value, the life expectancy, and the possibility and opportunity in our kids' lives. So I'd like to actually introduce the teachers who were judged to be the best teachers in New Haven. And I'm going to ask them to come up, and I want you to see their faces. And when you go to school, get to know their names. So by first name, Mary Ann, Justin, Regina, Martha, Ann, Pamela, Rebecca, Elizabeth, Chris, Lois, James, Irina, Deidre, Gloria, Mindy, Dirk Michael, Deborah, Danielle, Lucia, Carol Ann, Diane. Day in, day out, with 21,000 New Haven public school students. These are the folks who make a huge difference in the lives of our kids. You will all be invited by Dr. Mayo to come visit the school. Know these folks. You guys do an extraordinary job, and I hope you know what you're part of. It was so great in Seattle to get such great feedback, at least from my colleagues. We all appreciate it from our colleagues. From my colleagues about what's going on in New Haven. You guys do a great job. Thank you so, so much. New Haven teachers. Okay, teachers, you're done. Visit them. Job number 2. In 2011, we lost 34 people to violent crime. 34. And that doesn't count the other victims. Family members, friends, and kids in the neighborhood who are growing up and seeing that people getting killed might be somehow normal. It isn't normal. It isn't normal. We must never think it's normal, or that someone deserved it, or more importantly, that we can't do something about it. We can, and we will. Now, I reached out to bring in the best leadership to run the PD that I could find. But Dean Esserman is one person. And as much as I respect your talents, Chief, you're no Superman, and you don't pretend to be. This is a problem that we all have, and it's up to all of us to solve it. So before we do anything more in policing in New Haven, We should transparently and publicly talk about what our goals and what our strategies are. Chief Esserman has talked to me about it. Now I've asked him to come to the board in the next month and talk to you in the community about it. I want to say a few things about that discussion. It begins with two straightforward and in some ways very obvious missions. But to be said, a clear strategy to focus on guns and violent behavior. And second, and essential to reinvigorate our community partnerships. We call 5 main pieces out of how we'll achieve this mission. First is implementing an innovative and proven strategy to address gang violence and the other blights in our neighborhoods like open-air drug dealing. We will interdict behaviors with our federal and state partners that perpetuate this kind of behavior, and those doing it will be given a clear choice about what they do. This is called High Point strategy. We will do it aggressively. Second, there were 133 shootings last year. That's not the shocking number. The shocking number is that only 27 of them were solved. The state of Connecticut has agreed to partner with the PD on a shooting task force to focus on this. Too many shooters doing this over and over again, and often the same victim of the same kind of thing. Third, the PD won't give up on cold cases. This isn't TV. What this is about is that families deserve justice, and we can't have murderers walking our streets. We're going to need to talk to the board about how the police department wants to do this. We may need to change some personnel rules as we're thinking about doing it, and we would need your help with that. Fourth, strengthening community partnerships. Every day, the PD needs to be out there building these relationships. Things like inviting the management teams to staff the substations, or participating in youth programs, or just by walking the beat. And we'll need to hire some more officers to do all this. Chief recently introduced 20 walking beats by reassignment last week. But we need, and the community wants, more than just 20 walking beats in the city. And we'd like to propose doubling the number to 40 and adding more school resource officers. But we just can't throw precious dollars and taxpayers' resources without a plan and without a reasonable hope for results. End of the month, we'll forward to the board the strategy, the staffing structure, and our financial plan to pay for it all. It would be my request to the board, hold hearings, talk about it, give the public a say on what they think about this. This is an effort worth making. I want to mention one more thing with regard to public safety. In all of this, as difficult as it has been for our neighborhoods and for our families, the efforts of our police officers is extraordinary. They're the ones who accept the responsibility, often at great risk and cost to themselves and their families. Detective Andy Faggio was buried just 3 weeks and 2 days ago on January 14th. He was killed in the line of duty. He was the 4th New Haven police officer killed in the line of duty in the last 64 months. I'm going to put a face to this in the last 64 months. Andy Faggio, Rob Fumiati, Danny Bicadley, and Scott Aponte, all killed in the line of duty, leaving 4 spouses behind them, and among the 4 of them, 10 children. 4 New Haven police officers killed in the line of duty, leaving 10 children without fathers, all of them in their 30s and 40s. I want to introduce and acknowledge on behalf of them and on behalf of all the work that the PD does, our frontline officers, the people who work with you, the members of the Board of Aldermen, on what's happening in your neighborhood. So I want them to come up and acknowledge them. Chief, would you bring up Rebecca Sweeney Burns, Marty Takrides, Lieutenant Wazlewski, Ray Hassett, Thad Reddish, Tony Zona, Vincent Anastasio, Max Joyner, and Louie, too. These are district managers who get it done for us each and every day. Do not leave here without having their phone numbers, beeper numbers, home address, where they live. They do an extraordinary job for us, but they're your point of contact, your relationship with the community. Guys and ladies, thank you so much for everything that you do. You do a great job. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So job number three. Job number three is directly connected to job number one, school change, and it is work. As I said earlier, the city's creating jobs, one of the few places in the state creating jobs, but they're different kinds of jobs than we've known in the past. The city's not just creating jobs. For the first time in the last 100 years, city population growth has outpaced the state average. Commercial and residential vacancies are at national lows. Foreclosures fell last year to the lowest number since 2006. Our core employers, we know who they are and where they live, are growing. And as I'll detail shortly, aside from reevaluation, we've again had aggressive growth in the grand list, and tax collections have remained strong, above 98%. It's pretty good. It's very good. But there's a mismatch in all this. And the mismatch is between the jobs in New Haven and the skills of New Haveners, between the kinds of jobs we have in New Haven and the kinds of skills folks have, which I just said, between the ambitions of at-risk populations, reentry and young people, and the intense competition for jobs by anybody, between the host of agencies and organizations who are supposed to level the playing field and those who are even just trying to find the playing field of where do you go when you're looking for work. And there's a mismatch in thinking that this is just about new employers. This is about all our employers. Now, in this one, you, the Board of Aldermen, have taken the first step in the resolution that you've introduced tonight that creates the table for everyone to get around and for this community to fashion a solution. It's a good thing that you should be proud of. And in fact, though, in just describing the problem, in some ways we've described the solution, kind of New Haven work solution, a one-stop, where all those looking for work, whether you're underemployed, unemployed, young, re-entry, can go to. A one-stop connected directly to employers who need workforce through a pipeline. Imagine a program focused on New Haven residents in which all employers, big and small, profit and nonprofit, build community through extraordinary efforts and goals to hire city residents. I'm reminded that our president got his start in banking through an internship that he had before he graduated from school, creating connections with coordinated training programs, adult ed, and regional workforce development right next to each other. Level of coordination, not great. Putting together regional workforce board, adult ed, gateway, jobs corps, all together in one place with employers, with people looking for work. And something I love, putting high school-based career development centers run by the private sector in our high schools so our kids can see the choices they have in the community in which they're growing up. This is the kind of solution that you're talking about that matches aspiration to access, that matches a trained workforce to all employers, and a solution that matches a trained New Haven workforce to lifelong work, happiness, success, possibility, and opportunity. I look forward to your work on this, to collaborating and supporting it. Finally, job number 4. Finances, the grand list budget, and taxes. Let me give some facts, and then let's talk about a little direction. First, the grand list. The 2011 grand list was certified by the acting assessor last week. The 2011 net taxable grand list increases by about 16.7%, some $861 million up over the 2000 list. Now that growth comes from two places. First, about $722 million of the 861, 722 of the 861, comes from the net increase due to the revaluation of property. The property was worth this, now it's worth that. But some $139 million comes from new things constructed in New Haven. This is principally PSEG's peaking power plant over in the 17th Ward, in Al's Ward, and United Illuminating's modernization of its Grand Avenue and Union Avenue stations. That's 2.7% growth in new stuff. Again, for the third year in a row, will be among the highest growth, new growth, not reval growth, new growth in a grand list in Connecticut. And that'll generate at the current mill rate some $6 million in new taxes. That is good. Second budget. For last year, the fiscal year 2011 audit, the budget that ended June 30, 2011, will be issued at the end of this month. And as had been projected in our internal statements, which we've shared out with the board previously and which you've been briefed, we'll close last year with a surplus of $650,000. That'll be the 17th surplus in the last 18 years. The current year budget, 2012, that ends this coming June 30, was adopted at $475.4 million. Since adoption of the budget, and as the year's gone on, we've been managing a budget shortfall that's ranged as high as $11.1 million at times. I've asked the budget director to brief the Finance Committee upon submission later this month of the January 31st monthly report. Budget director will present the series of budget actions and initiatives by which we're confident that if we agree and we adopt them, will result in a balanced budget for the current year as well. That's a doable thing for us. Taxes. On taxes, the biggest change that I think residents may see, one way or the other, will result from the 2011 property revaluation. As you know from the briefings I held around the city late last year, early this year, many of you were there, there was a wide disparity in changes in value in the 2011 property revaluation. Of the roughly 21,000 residential properties in the city, about 46% saw increases and 54% saw decreases. When you look at the portion of that that is owner-occupied residential properties, about 51% saw increases and 49% saw decreases. About half went down and half went up. And what you remember from those hearings that I held around the city, the ones that went up tended to go up more than those that went down. People will see a change, largely resulting from change in value on their property. But what does it all mean? So let me make a couple observations about finances. To the good. To the good, we're honestly and consistently balancing the city budget year after year. And as I said earlier, tax collections remain really good. Fund balance, while not at rating agency desired levels, is large, it's stable, and it exceeds any of our peer cities. Cash position, something we don't always talk about, but which we get concerned about on Fridays when we make payroll, is good and remains strong and has been. Non-property revaluation growth in the grand list is good. Economic development initiatives are working, though I'd caution the board and my own administration, my own team, to be cautious about writing down the grand list through tax expenditures. And this is a matter which we need to be vigilant at the state capitol when sometimes folks go to the state capitol to get their tax decreases rather than coming to us, which they can do. Of concern, while we have been balancing the budget, this has been and is going to continue to result in hard sets of choices. I don't know if you noticed the national job numbers that came out last week for the month of January. In the United States last month, it was reported that 243,000 jobs were created, a surprisingly large number. That's good. But that was net of 14,000 job losses in public sector jobs. In other words, while the private sector is growing, the public sector, state and local government around America, is continuing to cut jobs, because they're experiencing the same pressures that all of us are. That said, I also expect that there are some citizens and some of us that will want more services than others of us are willing to, what? Pay for. Want more services than we're willing to pay for. And our budget drivers, pensions, health care, continue to outpace savings that we've accomplished both from workforce reductions, personnel, and non-personnel savings initiatives. Still going to be tough budgets. Also of concern, and mentioned during last year's budget negotiations, we need to address some of our long-term balance sheet liabilities. Long-term balance sheet liabilities are not usually the stuff of excitement at these kinds of events, but they remain a concern for us, and I will submit some proposals in the fiscal year 13 budget to address the self-insurance reserve fund and some issues we have to deal with. You'll recall and should know we are in or about to commence negotiations with our two public safety unions, police and fire, and our two largest AFSCME units as well. I expect to continue the efforts and directions that we've set in restructuring work rules, pensions, and health cares. These changes are necessary because the current plans are just not sustainable for us. And finally, I think it's useful to have a discussion before I submit the budget to the board regarding implementation of the 2011 property revaluation. I have no intention of seeking a delay in implementation, but we ought to explore if there's any way that we might reasonably take steps to mitigate some of its more significant impacts. That said, I think that working together, taxpayers and residents alike can expect a reasonable level of service improvements in a fair tax environment. What that means is that I think we could sustain current service levels, some reasonable improvements here and there, and do so pretty much without heavily impacting taxes, except for what? Property revaluation. So there's a lot more, but not for tonight. Our work on public safety for jobs and balancing budgets is important. But I want to close with this. There's one area, more than any other, that I'll say it anyway, that you want to take it, that I urge, that I plead, I don't plead often, that I expect for all of us to work together on, each in our own way, and where each of us has an opportunity to provide leadership, and that is to support and grow New Haven school change. I have been around, like some of you, for a while. And in that time, working with Reggie, with Dr. Mayo, and many of you in this room, we've done a lot of good things. You know, people always comment to me, oh, the school buildings look so nice. Well, right, they should. They cost $1 billion. They always say to me that the school buildings look great. But the real treasure is not the school buildings. The real treasure, real gift of God, are those young people in all of those school buildings. And if there's one place where we get a chance, we get the opportunity to work with those kids, it's in the schools. Over the last 18 years, I've had the chance to be in every one of these schools time after time after time. And like you, I've had a chance to watch these kids, to watch them struggle, to watch them succeed, to watch them laugh, to watch them just be the wonderful people that they are. These kids, if they're given half a chance, they will deliver for themselves, for their families, and this community. And the sin of our time, in our generation, if we don't take what is one of the most comprehensive, collaborative, and investing programs in school change and deliver the real goods for these kids, everything else we do will be meaningless. 21,000 kids each and every day. All of us, when we look back at the blessing of time we've had in elective office, none of it will matter if we don't do for these kids. Now on that one, I look forward to working with you, for struggling with you, and for doing what we're going to do, which is to succeed. Because that's what we do in New Haven. That's our city. God bless you, Thank you for listening to me tonight. And as President, Board, I look forward to working with you and all of the city. Have a good night. Thank you.